And I also opened up the chat box. If you have any questions for Nick or for Alan, in there. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Caroline Tomasi, our youth minister, and she's going to do the honors this evening. Caroline?
Yes. Thank you, Mary. Thank you. Yeah, again, thank you for being here, everybody. I'm really excited to hear from Nick and Alan on what they've experienced and the good work they do, and ways that we can, going forward, ways we can help others and, impact people. I love their mission statement, and I love the idea and the message that, nobody's home until everybody is home. Having a home is a basic need. Having a house is a basic need that goes unmet by many, many people. And, what Project Home does is life-changing. It's a life-changing organization, and it's very impactful. So I really am excited to hear about, as Mary said, with the book collection, where our books are now and what happens to those books that many of you have donated. Many of our families have donated hundreds and hundreds of books. So it's exciting to see let's learn about what happens to those books once they leave the church and are delivered and they're at, the facility and all that good stuff. So Nick, if you could talk about or Alan, the book project area and about Project Home more in depth, that would be great.
I think I'll go first, and I'm echoing from somewhere. I don't know who's. I'll just talk broadly about Project Home, give you a little history about that, and then maybe kind of hone in on the employment and social enterprise work that we do, and then probably turn it over to Alan, who can tell another part of the story and get more in depth on the book project, because he works there every day. Can I just have people heard of Project Home or have some idea what we do or what area we work in? So I can be brief about the history, but just to give you the larger context, Project Home is a 30-year-old organization. So it was founded in actually 1989 by Sister Mary Scullion from the Sisters of Mercy and Joan Dawson Connon. And what happened at that time was that they were successful they had both been working on the issue of homelessness in Philadelphia already for a long time. They were successful in securing rights to a gymnasium to make a winter shelter for men living on the streets. And through that, they realized that there was, and through that and their other work, they realized that there's a sort of complicated, let's call it like a complicated set of barriers to getting a home for people while they're actively living on the street. And they're more complicated than just you need a house or you need somewhere to live, right? They're a big set of medical problems or other things. And so they formed, in working with those men in the shelter, this idea for a nonprofit that tried to address a permanent end to homelessness or poverty in a person's life, and ultimately in Philadelphia and hopefully in our society. And what they came up with were what we call the 4 pillars. So their home for us is an acronym. So the work is housing, opportunities for employment, medical care, and education. And the idea is that those are the 4 pieces that if you can provide access to those things to someone, they can then do the work themselves to permanently lift themselves out of homelessness and poverty. And that has a lot of good effects for people personally, but also in our society at large, that helps us become stronger and healthier. And that's why we say none of us are home until all of us are home. That we believe that work is everybody's work. It's not the work of somebody helping someone else. It is all of us working together to make a positive change in our community. And we still work along those 4 pillars today. So in terms of housing, we have approaching 1,000 units of permanent housing in Philadelphia, and those are subsidized, mostly permanent, but we also have some like what you think of as traditional shelters or transitional housing, which I can get in more detail about if you're interested. But 1,000 units of people who are there in a funded opportunity to have a home. And then and we're building more. Actually, we have a goal of about 1,200 in the next, getting to 1,200 in the next 2 years. So we opened a building during the pandemic in Kensington, kind of to really address the issues in that neighborhood. And then, which is further north than we've been. And we're based in North Philadelphia, but there's housing in West Philadelphia, a little bit in the south, and some in Center City. That's all Project Home housing. And then opportunities for employment, I'm going to come back to, even though that's the second letter in home, because that's, I think, where we want to go into more detail. And then as far as medical care, 7 years ago, we opened the Stephen Klein Wellness Center in North Philadelphia. It's a doctor's office. It has OBGYN services. It has a dental clinic, and it serves that neighborhood broadly, and it takes insurance, and it's a beautiful building. I encourage you to go if you haven't been able to go. And it's very high quality medical care that's accessible to everyone. Another thing about that building is that it has an area where people can like shower, and a clothing bank for people that are living on the street. And right now it's doing a lot. It's doing vaccinations for COVID. Vaccinations are being run out of there. And then as an extension of that, and an extension of our street outreach services, we have a facility in underground at Suburban Station, which we call the Hub of Hope, which is where we support people who are not residents or in Project Home programs, but just anybody who is experiencing homelessness currently can go there. They get access to sort of case management services, help with what we call harm reduction, which is a complicated concept, but working on any issues that they might have, if they're mental health or substance abuse addiction or things like that, they can begin to do that, but also they can take a shower. We have clothes that they can change into. They can actually do laundry there. They can get some of the basic necessities of life that we all probably feel like we have easy access to, but are hard to get in terms of, food and knowledge about where to go and what to do and how to access opportunities in the area. So that's sort of under medical care and housing, right? And then we have educational opportunities. We also have a 15-year-old now, what we call the Honickman Learning Center and Comcast Technology Labs. And that is in the same neighborhood as Stephen Klein Wellness Center and some of our housing in North Philly. And it has K-8 after-school programs. So it's offering enrichment programs that are commonplace, but aren't in a lot of places, but aren't as available or weren't, especially when they started in North Philadelphia. Has a college access program, which does counseling and enrichment so that kids who are in schools that maybe don't have a lot of resources can get to avail themselves of those resources and take a robotics course or a music production course or other things like that. These are things that look good on college applications and help people continue studying things that they're interested in and stuff. And then to jump back to opportunities for employment. We have, of those 1,000 residents, we have a goal that everybody that is in a situation where they want a job and can handle a job can get one. And so we have employment specialists who are based at the Honickman Learning Center, but work out of all of our sites. We have 22 different buildings right now. And I guess it's 24. And then we have what we call our social enterprises. And social enterprise is a real insidery nonprofit word, but basically what it means is any business that participates in the marketplace, sells things and takes in money, not as donations, but in exchange for goods and services. But the goal of the business is something better, to better your community or social environment. So you see that in a lot of forms. And the form it takes with us is that we start and grow small businesses in order to create job opportunities for residents. And the idea is that for a lot of the residents, it'll be transitional. A lot of times people come into the programs, they maybe are getting stable with whatever's going on in their life, financial issues, family issues, mental health issues, and they want to have a job or dip their toe in employment, but they have a big gap on their resume now, or maybe they've never had a full-time job. So they get the experience of doing that along with developing other things that they might want to move on beyond that. It's a lot of shades and difference inside that, and we can talk about that more if you want. Right now, what that looks like is we have a thrift shop called Homespun Boutique at 1523 Fairmount Avenue. We have a candle and soap business and a gift business, which we call Project Homemade. And you can check it out at projecthomemade.org if you need gifts for people in your life. It makes candles and mugs and other things that feature artwork by residents, and they're made by residents in workshop programming. And then last year, Alan and I started an online bookstore. And it's kind of the biggest piece with the most people employed in that social enterprise. And Alan's here to tell you a little bit more about that and how it takes donations and turns them into jobs.
How do we take donations and turn them into opportunities for my coworkers who are currently residents? One, individuals like yourselves, we've had donations pouring in from all corners of the city, from what I believe. Nick and I have gone on a couple of journeys to retrieve books. It was kind of a bonding experience. And we don't say no to any donation. Obviously, not every book that we receive, we are able to do anything with. So we do have a relationship with the Salvation Army. So it's not like the books come, we decide that we can't use them and they go to trash. We make sure that everything that we receive is able to get a life somewhere else. Now, the books that are determined to be of good quality, we scan them into our computer system, which gets a little technical, and we are online on Amazon, ABE Books, and another site I believe is called Alibris. And I've been able to at least see addresses from all over the world, as we've had people purchase our books from Australia, Spain, the Ukraine, a couple of places that I just can't pronounce. It's a beautiful experience for me because it gives me a little more insight to places and individuals that I've never seen. I also handle the customer service aspect. So individuals that are, especially with COVID-19 and the way it's impacting the postal service, individuals that are trying to figure out where their things are, they talk to me. And if I feel it necessary, I'll elevate them to Nick. And what I'm basically trying to do is work out the groundwork so that when I move on, another person, another resident in Project Home can step into my place and continue the process. We want to build something solid and stable so that it can basically run itself. So when the residents come in, it's kind of relaxed and safe for them. As obviously when it's coming up from the ground, it's a lot of stress, and not everybody is able to accept the same stress level. And it's a lot of fun. Any questions?
Yeah, that's I just wanted to add that the scale of the bookstore, because I think sometimes you hear, oh, this nonprofit started an online bookstore. It's pretty big. It's like a warehouse business, so it's only online. We have about 30,000 books online at any given time, and we're selling between 50 and 150 books all 7 days a week. And we're shipping them out, not on Sunday, but every other day we're shipping out books. So it's a pretty big going concern.
Even though I am preparing books on Sunday.
Yeah, they're just not, the post office doesn't come get them. We sell them.
You know, a few people had actually asked me today if it was too late for them to take books, more books to Project Home.
It is never too late. And for personal knowledge, Monday through Friday, there's usually someone there. Myself personally, I'm Saturday to Wednesday until 11 o'clock in the morning, which may be too early for some of the younger ones.
Mm-hmm.
My coworker Jared comes behind me at 3. However, if 3 p.m. is still too early, if you bring them to 1523 Fairmount Avenue, we'll more than happy pick them up from there. And right now, because of the COVID restrictions, myself and Nick, we can't come personally get them. But when the world comes back to normal or some form of normal, me and Nick will be more than happy to come pick them up for you.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah. I was gonna ask what books you need the most, like what kind of books, like books for smaller kids, for older kids, or like
From what I've seen in a handful,
what kind of books?
From what I've seen and the short time that we've been online, we actually went live this past November, and everything sells. We have kids'
Right.
books, we have school books, elementary, college textbooks, and then of course we have the imagination. Star Wars is still a big seller, Star Trek, the Chronicles of Narnia. So if you have it and you're willing to part with it, we'll be more than happy to find a home for it.
We do say that any book in good condition can be useful to us. We've recently been looking at what are our best sellers. So for your knowledge, it seems like things that are like specific, right? So anything that might be studied in a college class, anything that's like for the study of religion or the study of engineering, or not necessarily textbooks, but just things that are, you know, or that are specific or academic or technical in any way seem to be the best things. But that applies to, like, it could be about engineering or it could be about pre-Christian history. It's just.
I'm now a freshman in college, so I'm gonna take you up.
Anything you touch will probably be a good donation for us.
Awesome.
Freshmen in college, like anything.
Do any of you guys have any other questions? Even if you don't feel like talking and like having your voice, because I know this is recorded, you guys can always like private message me if you don't want everybody to see the question. I'll read it out for you. If you have a question.
Or you could private message Nick too.
Yeah, you're Nick.
I wasn't there, but it was that thing I was thinking about Project Home. That the book thing was for, but it started at 6.
No, I don't have any more questions.
Maeve,
No,
do you have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Does the money from the books, does it go to anything specific or just general operations?
Yeah, so the goal of all of our social enterprises, that's a great question, by the way, is for them to be self-funding. So the idea, we're not there yet with the book project, but the idea is that the revenue that we make from selling the books, or the profit margin, we have to think of like any other business, right? Because it also costs us money to send out the book and process it and so on. Any money we make beyond that is what is paying the salary of the residents working in that program. So it's self-funding, and then anything beyond that, as we've gotten to in some of the other businesses, is used to grow those things. For instance, we're starting the bookstore in part, not in total, with money that we made from the gift line. That was kind of how we see that. So the idea is that they'll just be self-funding and creating growth as they go along.
Nick, can I ask if you could give us just sort of a quick look at the scope of the homelessness situation in Philadelphia? I mean, you've got 1,000 units of housing. How many people would you say are still out there on the street experiencing homelessness? And what kinds of people are they? And sort of how do people end up in that situation? Because I'm sure a lot of them didn't expect it. But I think it would be helpful to everybody to have some understanding of who is experiencing homelessness and how many people there are.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get. Those are all good questions. They're all hard to answer for different reasons. One thing is there are literally one thing that we have learned, and you'll hear Sister Mary say this all the time, is there are as many ways that someone becomes homeless as there are people who have become homeless in their life, right? There's really no, and it is, and I really think this, it is a blessing of being intimately involved in this work to understand that it can happen to everyone, you know, and that is helps me think of it as a societal problem, right? Is that there are certainly, we see a high instance of people with substance abuse problems, and they can have any background and end up there. We see a lot of people who face other structural barriers, right? So they have limited opportunity because of prejudice in the society around them or our society. We see a lot of people who have really difficult family situations that cause them to be homeless very young. So, and those are like just 3 examples, and all of those are very broad, right? And there's a lot of incidents of mental health and sort of untreated mental health and things like that. Just as far as the scope, you know, so we do street outreach in Philadelphia at Project Home. It's a big part of the work that we do, and Sister Mary sort of organized all of Philadelphia's street outreach early in her career. And so the outreach teams we know every year engage with about 6,000 people living on the street. Or
excuse me, can you tell us a little bit about what that street outreach looks like? I mean, so people can, that's people going out directly to people they see on the street?
Yeah, so it's actually a cool thing, and you should write down this number as soon as I remember it. I'll drop it in the chat in a second. Anybody at all who sees someone homeless in Philadelphia or the area can call the outreach number. Alan, if you have that handy and can drop it in the chat, it would be great. I remember it ends 1984.
232.
That's right, 215-232-1984. I highly recommend putting that in your phone. And outreach teams will come check on them. In fact, our outreach teams are out 24 hours a day, almost every day a year, all kinds of weather. And actually their work becomes more critical the worse the weather is. And they engage every day with people on the street. So I got to do a ride along with Sam, who works on our outreach, been in outreach at Project Home for 20 years. And what we did the day we were going out is we checked on a handful of people. There was someone that he knew that was ready. He's really just establishing relationships. So there's someone that's been on the street for a while, and Sam has known him for a while, and he said he was ready to enter a drug treatment program. And Sam had found a program that had a bed for him in a space. So we went out looking for that guy because he was currently homeless at that time. So he was hard to locate. We also found another guy that we had a call about who we checked on. It turned out he was a veteran. It is pretty easy to connect veterans to resources. So we were able to do that. But a lot of it is a relationship building thing. People who are living on the street or in other like inhabitable situations are there and have been, for the most part, exploited in one way or another, and they are not given to trusting other people. And that is very reasonable given their life experience. And so a lot of what the outreach teams are doing is establishing trust with somebody to say, like, I really can help you. I'm not here to take advantage of you in some way or take this over. And that when you are ready to deal with whatever you need to deal with, which may be as simple as housing or maybe more complicated, I'm here to help you and connect you to those resources. Give you that. And they have relationships with really thousands of people on a time in various cases. And somebody that Alan and I worked closely with was street homeless in Philadelphia for I think over 20 years, and eventually came in to live at Project Home and is now, you know, a leader in our community, and we're grateful to have him work with our department as well. And it really took that long. He had some very bad experiences. It really took that long for him to build up trust with that. And there are, unfortunately, shelters and things that are
horrible, terrible, absolutely miserable.
not safe, not good. You shouldn't go to them. You shouldn't be in them. And how you know when you're on the street, which is a real question.
Yes. I've seen one or two personally.
Mm-hmm.
I remember reading about Sister Mary early when she was a young sister. I believe she decided to spend a week living on the street, or tried to spend a week living on the street. And she just talked about how completely terrifying it was. And so to think of somebody, I mean, you know, close your eyes at night on a street corner. I can't imagine anything more frightening.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us some of the numbers that are estimated, Nick, about out there?
Sorry. So I mean, really key to that. You mean in terms of the current situation?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the things that we know are that we engage with about 6,000 people living on the street that's in Philadelphia. We know that during the last school year, we have good numbers for. I think it's like 7,288 children and youth in Philadelphia experienced homelessness. Approximately over 8,000 people had to access emergency shelter in Philadelphia last year.
You want me to drop the website? I just found our own pit count website.
Yeah, I have it too. Yeah, drop that in the chat. There's a lot of complicated ways to slice the problem about who's where, And there's a lot of fine detail around who exactly is homeless or unhoused, you know, but
Right, but you also mentioned something that I was going to ask about, was a lot of people who are experiencing homelessness are these kids' ages, right?
yeah,
They're not.
yeah, that's a big problem, and we see that, and we also see the effects of that later in life.
Hey guys, just to like, I mean, Nicholas, not to cut you off or anything, if you
Mhm.
guys have more to say, do any of you guys have questions about this? I know it's it can be a confusing topic, but if you guys have any questions, no questions, silly. What's up, Maeve?
Are there any youth specific shelters for the kids our age? Are they kind of like integrated in?
There are other organizations that are curtailed specifically for the youth. I know of Covenant House on Germantown Avenue. It only deals with 18 and under.
Yeah, St. John's Hospice is St. John's. There are a couple. We don't have within Project Home. We don't do any, but those outreach teams are citywide. Like that's a city number. It's coordinated by Project Home, so we work with other places, and we do have some of our residences. Rowan Judson in North Philly and Rowan Diamond are for families, and most of those are so children are allowed to live there. I believe that both of those are only for women and children, but they're designed for homeless families to be able to live together.
We also have the new LGBTQ facility that is targeted for teenagers of that demographic.
Good question, Maeve.
Yeah, great question. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions or anything they want to like say? Any comment? Anything? Feel free.
I just wanted
Can
to
you-
throw out, I think I forgot to say thank you. I just wanted to thank you all it's many thousands of books that'll take us a good amount of time to get through, but it just looked like it was not just a lot, but also a very high quality donation. Wanted to make sure that got back to everybody.
What have you learned to be one of the best ways to let folks know that they matter and that you care? I know you talked about the importance of building that trusting relationship. Have you learned like a common theme amongst folks? Like what really gets what is it that really helps people to know that you do care and that they do matter?
Do you want to take that, Alan, or do you want me to take it?
Being able to communicate is a two-way street. So not only are you able to talk, you also have to be able to listen. And to get an individual to understand that they matter, you really have to get curtailed to that individual. So to answer your question, there is no real way on a general platform to let people know that they matter and they care, which is why Project Home's outreach team does what they do. They go out and they actually try to see who is out there, why they're out there, what is out there to some degree. And no two people can handle the same person in the same way. So you really have to be able to get personal and be open enough to be personal. You have to be willing to be hurt to help.
Mr.
Yeah.
I saw that you unmuted your mic if you had a question or a comment.
I had a question and a comment. First off, I used to work at 16th and Fairmount, and the cafe made some of the best sandwiches I've ever had, and they were big sandwiches.
It's before my time, but I've heard good things about that.
Project Home and oh, it was wonderful.
Sunny was great.
But I wanted to see if you could talk a little bit about. Thank you. I wanted to see if you could talk about the successes, the transitions to full-time housing, permanent housing. You know, talk about how you've had success in bringing people to long-term, you know, permanent housing, rental housing, or home ownership even.
Going from having nothing to having my own apartment, I can take that one. I'm not sure if Nick can even expand upon what Project Home can do for everybody. I started before I even came into Project Home. I had heard about Project Home while I was sleeping on the streets, going to soup kitchens, and I didn't trust them. Project Home actually hooked me into doing one of their annual homeless anniversaries, where they acknowledge the individuals that passed away still in homelessness. They do it once a year. It's our Homeless Memorial Day. And I was doing spoken word at the time, and one of their employees asked me to present at their Homeless Memorial Day. And me and this young lady, I had seen her around the poetry scene once or twice. So I was able to trust her. I went out, I met Michael Nutter. He was the mayor at the time. He came down, shook my hand after I performed. I met Sister Mary. And it was a good 6 years later before I actually became a resident at Project Home, because at the time I was still sleeping on the street. I had been through Ridge Avenue, I had been through Otley House. The system in my eyes was dangerous. I had seen drug abuse inside the buildings. I had seen just the quality of upkeep, and I felt it safer to sleep on the streets with rats than to sleep in a homeless shelter. And going through the system was a bit of a challenge and a struggle for me, because I started at Somerset, which is Broad and Girard area, and then they lost my paperwork. I just got lost in the system, so to say. I ended up at a Germantown YMCA. I didn't even know that was a recognized shelter facility. And finally, I was saved by Project Home. And me and Project Home love each other, and it's like a brother relationship. We have our issues. There are things about Project Home that I wish would be better, but looking at what else is out there, I love it, because I went from sleeping on a park bench in front of the library to now having my own apartment and being an alumni of Project Home. So I know personally that it is possible. Now, how far up? I've heard stories of individuals being walked down the path of home ownership, and I can't personally speak to it, but I do know that it's possible.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for sharing that story. Thank you.
Thank you. That's incredible how they saved you and just your journey.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
It's a great story. Sister Mary would want me to remind you that Project Home didn't save Alan. Alan saved himself, and Project Home was lucky enough to be there with resources.
I don't know who saved me there, because Project Home got me out of the Germantown Y. And that was actually another thing that was my issue with the system. It's a mental thing. They already have a belief that everybody's out there has an addiction problem. And for me personally, I ran away when I was 17. I was homeless when I was going to high school, and my family had things. My parents, my dad cheated on my mom. She picked us up and moved us to Dallas. Completely separated me from anybody I even knew was alive. In Texas, don't know nothing about the people. I can barely understand the culture. And this woman is going through her issues with her husband, her life partner, cheating on her. So my life was wonderful enough for me to decide that being homeless in a complete unknown area was safer than living with my mom. But to my benefit and to my credit, when my dad found out, maybe a year or two after I ran away, he came down to Dallas and brought me back to Philly, and I still ended up homeless. So family is a beautiful thing, but it's, for me personally, it's a struggle.
Yeah.
So to the question that was asked earlier, it's not who was homeless, because honestly, out there, everyone is out there. You want to scare yourself, you might see a reflection of yourself and somebody out there if you give them that moment. And that's why we're so adamant about no one is home until everyone is home, because we feel like we're not home yet because we're not there. The finish line isn't going to happen until we all have somewhere to call home.
Yeah, and just sorry, and thank you, Alan. One of the reasons that I really like Project Home always likes to work kind of in stories and anecdotally. There's plenty of numbers on our website, and we're happy to quote them when asked. But is that humanity is very key to the work that we do, and I think the work that we all have to do if we're going to end a big intractable problem like homelessness that has so many different root causes. And so, like I always like to hear the question that Mary asked, or just the underlying question, which is like, how should I react when I see someone who is experiencing homelessness currently, and what we should do? And I think there's no one answer to that. And I've answered it many times, and I've even heard Sister Mary answer it many times. But there's no specific but it is just very important to keep in mind that that's a person, that a person there is, you should treat them the way you would treat another person. And it doesn't mean that you have to give them money or you have to buy them food or whatever, but you should look somebody in the eye, and you should, you should respond when they talk to you, if they're reasonable and if they're fair, the same way you would treat me if we were all in the same room together, and or I would hope we would all treat each other. And it sounds sort of glib and basic, but it's something, the respect is very key and important, and we all should be able to expect it from one another. And people forget to do it more often than you'd think.
Yes.
Mhm. Mhm.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much
Nick. Yes, and sorry, Nick.
for saying that, because I think a lot of people, and I'm sure myself included, I might not be inclined to look them in the eye because I might feel like they would think that I was staring at them or objectifying them, or,
Right.
get them
I mean,
in the wrong.
sure, if somebody's sitting by themselves talking to themselves, I don't mean that you should interrupt them or whatever, but I do.
No, but just,
You see people walk very close by someone and ignore them in a way that you probably wouldn't if someone
Right.
seemed to be in a more similar situation to you, and so on. It's if somebody asks you for change or something, it's okay to not give them to them. I would encourage you to at least respond by saying, I'm sorry, I can't right now, rather than just walking on. And I think it means more than you think. I also don't think it's that bad to give people money. But that's not an official Project Home position. That's just me.
Communication is a beautiful thing, especially when the only other person to talk to is yourself.
Mhm.
Mhm. Do you, Nick and Alan, do you have any ideas for us what we could do on our end, immediately that might not be challenging or difficult to help, to help your mission and to help your good work in light of the circumstances with, limitations with the pandemic and things like that? Is there anything we can keep in mind or places we can check online? I know that by Mary just initially checking your website and seeing this flyer for a book collection, that action led to, hundreds of families in our parish being moved to donate thousands of books. And so is there anything we can keep an eye out for or do on our end?
Yeah, it's so complicated, right?
Yeah, that's a broad question, because
Encouraging letters,
Nick and I are a very small part in something humongous. We have individuals whose task is to communicate with Harrisburg. We have an advocacy department, and they argue, they sweat, they give their heart to make big changes, small changes, and everybody's doing their own thing in their own manner. And we do come together and collaborate and communicate, but to answer your question, me and Nick would have to be able to give you details on what everybody is doing. And I can't answer that
I
question.
do partially know some of that. So it is true that it's difficult now during COVID. In normal circumstances, and I hope you all will come down and we can show you around the bookstore and around 15 where our offices are, and there's also a residence. And we'd love to have maybe your youth group come and volunteer for a day to help us sort the books and see that end of that, or work in our thrift shop. There are a lot of things that still go on, and also, again, during normal times, we have the Learning Center. We always have need for sort of tutors and support around there. There are neighborhood cleanups that we do. Those still go on, and those are still possible because they're external, and we usually ask groups to come together. But there are, as Alan hinted, there are a lot of advocacy work and letter writing and advocating for things. The best thing to do, I would say, because there are so many different parts, there are also, like, around holidays, there are chances to serve meals and food at residences and in different events. And those are really useful. The best thing to do is to get on all of our email lists. There are about 6 of them, but you can sign up for them all in one place, and you will hear about, scarcely a week will go by that we won't offer you some opportunity to get involved, whether it's by, like, buying and supporting our gift business, or writing to your senator, or in-person cleanups and things like that. There are lots and lots of ways to still get involved, and the best way to stay up to date is to get on the email list, which you can do at projecthome.org. And you can also check off kind of what are the specific things that might interest you in what areas, and then we can be sure to get to you about that.
Great. Does anybody have any questions or comments? We heard a little bit about the housing and the acronym HOME. I have the affordable housing, the opportunities for employment, the medical care, and the education, which I didn't realize. A lot is involved, a lot of layers there.
From an idea to a goal.
Now, I have a question just for you guys. You guys did say, the 2 of you said that you have a medical portion within Project Home. I'm actually an occupational therapist, like, major, and I throw me into anything healthcare. Are there any opportunities that you guys have?
Probably. What you could do is Mary has my email or something, get in touch with me and I'll connect you with the people there. I don't know exactly. There is, like, an OT program, and students from Jefferson work with us, so I know who the coordinator of that program is.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you.
I'll connect you. I don't know what there is, but she will.
Thank you very much.
I think I saw Alan chuckle. She's kind of a funny person, Tina, but she's great.
I love her enthusiasm.
Is it okay if I was looking at some of your YouTube videos, the Project Home YouTube videos. I was thinking of sharing the screen there's a 5-minute clip with, Sister Mary Scullion speaking, and could I do that right now? Does that work?
Good for me.
All right.
That'd be great.
I thought that was helpful.
Yeah, that would
just to get an idea. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead. Mary, it says that it's disabled. I'm not sure. Host disabled participant screen sharing. So I think another volunteer speaks on the video, and Sister speaks.
Try again, Caroline.
Sure. There we go. All right, here we go. All right.
Joyful experience when you know that they know they matter. That's really it. I mean, for me, what drove.
Can everybody hear this?
The mission of Project Home is none of us are home until all of us are home, which is the mandate that really what affects one of us directly affects all of us indirectly.
When someone feels cared about, like, it's just the most joyful experience when you know that they know they matter. That's really it. I mean, for me, what drove me to do this was I couldn't tolerate somebody feeling that disconnected from the rest of humanity, that they don't matter, they have no worth. That is totally unacceptable. And it can't be. And that's what we do every day. We care about each other.
HOME. H, affordable housing, O, opportunities for employment, M, medical care, and E, education.
There are many paths to come into a home. One of the foundational ways through the Outreach Coordination Center is the 24-hour homeless hotline run by the city and coordinated by Project Home. People call in response calls to our dispatch staff about a homeless person or a person they believe is homeless or a person in need. And we have the ability to assess the call and give it to a team.
We're in my apartment, and it's the John Bon Jovi Soul Homes. I've been here since they opened, and it's like really a great feeling. It was drugs that, ended up really putting me out on the street. I was, 96 pounds and on my deathbed, and I couldn't do it anymore. You don't have to be out here, there's hope, and there's people that do care about you and want to see you succeed.
I was homeless about 25 years. If it was not for Project Home, I wouldn't be alive today. I'm in a good space. I got my dream, I accomplished what I prayed for. Also, I'm honored to be on the Board of Trustees, thank you, Sister Mary. And I'm here in a bigger place.
For Thomas and Katie, housing, education, employment, and healthcare has not only turned their lives around, but they have been able to turn the lives of so many others in more positive directions.
We know how to solve homelessness in this country, and it is solvable. That's what I want people to know. And come and be part of the change, because it does take all of us.
There's so many ways that people can get involved, and we do depend upon people's financial support as well. Advocacy is very much at the heart of our mission. We will try and do what we can as individuals and as a community of people at Project Home for one another. But ultimately, it's our public policies that will have the greatest impact on the greatest number of lives. To look someone in the eye, to offer them a kind word, a word of encouragement, to offer to make a call to the Outreach Center.
Volunteers who can contribute their time.
It humbles me to think about the thousands of men, women, and children that have made this possible. It's really the power of we. There's just countless ways in which people have built what Project Home has become today.
None of us are home, none of us are healthy, none of us are educated, none of us are whole unless all of us are whole.
Very inspiring. Wow. Wow.
Well, unless that was a perfect way to wrap up. Unless anybody else has any questions, if you do, we can always put you in touch with Nick directly. But I want to really thank both gentlemen from Project Home. Nick, I want to thank you it's been great working with you on this drive. I'm looking,
It's been great working with you. Thank you.
and I'm looking forward to doing another one. Alan, we can't thank you enough for sharing your story with us, and for being with us tonight. We're really grateful.
Thank me.
Hmm? No,
We appreciate the opportunity. It was a pleasure.
No, so do we. It's our honor. And everybody keep praying for all of those who are struggling and experiencing homelessness and poverty, and pray for Project Home and the people there who are serving them. And that just God will keep them safe and give them the strength to get back on their feet. So unless anybody else has anything, Carol.
The peace of Christ be with you.
And with you. And with you. God bless.
Good night. Peace out, Nick.
All right.
Have a great night.
Thank you, everybody. Good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take good care, everybody.
Bye.
It was great being with you.